As I was performing my annual ritual of indulging in the beauty that is the Lord of the Rings trilogy, sitting and watching a very familiar scene, I was struck with an idea. I have to recreate this. But it can't be just another book nook on my bookshelf. It has to be more. I've seen many worthy reproductions of this exact scene from the Fellowship of the Ring, and because of their constraints from being book nooks or a small diorama, they generally don't capture the scale, that depth, or the grandeur that is this scene. What if I took those constraints away and instead built the Mines of Moria into my office wall? Before we get into tearing up the walls of my office, let me know in the comments if you're going to do something similar, put a portal to a world into your office. Where are we going? Is it from a book? Is it from a video game or a movie? I'm looking for ideas for my next build. Let me know in the comments. All right, let's plan this out. I want to create actual depth inside of a picture on the wall. This should work because I have open space on the other side of this wall. Yeah, but it's gonna be a pain to try and suspend this box in the air. Why don't we run along the wall, put a mirror to 45 and turn the corner? Yeah, just like Nerdforge did. That'd trick the eye into thinking the hallway just went straight. But then what do we put in front of the mirror?
It must be Mockup. At this scene in the Dwarrowdelf, the Fellowship just left Balin's tomb before being confronted by the Balrog.
That could work. It's gonna be tricky to lay out though. Start with a cardboard cutout. If this mirror illusion doesn't work, the whole thing's gonna fall apart. Listen, that all sounds great, but how am I supposed to film this dark box suspended in the air? I'm not worried about it. Let's get started. All right, with that cardboard mock-up and a mirror that I had sitting around, I tested the whole thing out, that illusion. I think it's going to work. Now, I might have went a little bit too far by actually cutting a hole in this temporary wall that I had sitting around, but it just helped me to visualize the whole thing because I can see it in front of me. Oh, you just happen to have a temporary wall on hand that worked perfectly for this project? Who does that? Oh, I'm so glad you asked that completely unscripted question. This wall was made exclusively for my Patreon members as a behind the scenes look into how I made the faux stone from my last video. If you're interested in behind the scenes content from this channel, head over to my Patreon. Links are in the description. Here's what I've learned from this quick and dirty mock-up. First, the mirror problem. A first surface mirror would be ideal because it eliminates that ghosting or second reflection, but man, they're kind of expensive, so I'm going with a standard mirror, which means I'm going to have to get kind of creative to hide that double reflection. And second, the dimensions of the mirror are actually going to matter more than I had originally thought. I tested with that narrow strip of glass and it really didn't sell the illusion like I wanted it to. So I'm going to have to calculate the size of that mirror that I want to use based on this box that I've built out. And third, the size of that front chamber that I was planning on turning into Balin's tomb is going to be a lot smaller than I had originally planned because of the size of the mirror that I'm going to need, which just means I'm going to have to get creative again. So now that I'm done with this pile of trash, I can move on to the final form factor. This is the finished box that I can build my diorama inside of and then hang on the wall. I've intentionally left the top off and this part open for ease of access when building out the diorama inside. I've added this support that gives me the exact angle that I need the mirror to be at. So when we look down the viewport, it'll look as if the chamber is extending back through the hole. And now you can see what I meant by there not being a whole lot of space to build out the chamber of Balin's tomb. We'll see what I come up with there. Moving forward, I need to plan and build out the entire interior scene. That's in front of the mirror and the entire chamber beyond that. I have to build that out and decide how exactly I want that to look. And then what am I going to do with the Balrog? I have to decide that and figure out, I've got some ideas that I'm excited to try, but we'll see how it looks in the end. Then I'll have to run any electronics, paint the interior, and finally cut a hole in my office wall and mount this thing permanently in place. To start this design, I'm going to reference some of the original drawings from Alan Lee's sketchbook, specifically the ones he made of Moria. Now, It's well established, Dwarven architecture follows basic geometric shapes. So in building out the columns, I'm going to start by 3D modeling a column base that follows those same shape language, as well as pulling in some of the details from Alan Lee's drawings. Once I have a design that I like, I'll go ahead and take that design and chuck it onto this foam column that will give us the beginnings of how this is going to look. I know, this is overkill for cutting foam, but it has a spinny cutty wheel and it's the best tool I've got for repeatable precision cuts. Okay, I am getting nowhere with this. I bought this foam core that is just some EVA foam sandwiched between 2 pieces of paper. After watching one YouTube video, went out and grabbed this and thought this would be so easy to make into the floor. I'll just peel that paper off just as easy as it was in the video I watched. Well, that is not the case. I have made, as you can see, little to no progress at all on this, and I keep gouging into the foam. So I don't know if this is going to work for the floor like I thought it would. Obviously I can't just use the paper. I was hoping to texture this foam that's underneath the paper, but man, this isn't going well. I might have to rethink this.
And that is essentially removing the paper from foam board.
Yes, this is working so much better. Oh. Man, if you want to test your patience, go ahead and peel the paper off of one of these. My goodness, I'm glad that's over. Okay, now I can cut this down to size and get it in place for the floor. Oh, this is getting me so excited because you can actually start to see the illusion starting to work. And now that I've got it in the physical form, I can, space the columns how I need to. It's so much better. I love the virtual world for troubleshooting and figuring out as much as you can, but nothing beats actually getting it in front of you, building it out, and seeing it come together in person. I gotta dive in and start working on the rest of this interior. All right, I think I've figured out what I want to do with the area in front of the mirror. Obviously, don't have a whole lot of space, but I do have this alcove off to the left that I put a piece of foam core here so that I can carve in a door and then build out the chamber of Balin's tomb inside of that area. So when you're looking through the doorway, you'll just see a little bit of those details, but I think that'll be an awesome addition to this diorama. Obviously, it's not the main focus. That is the hallway with the Balrog, but I think it'll be a cool Easter egg off to the side that you can pick up on as you look at the diorama. And now it's time to remove the paper from the rest of this foam that I cut out.
History became legend. Legend became myth. And for 2,500 years, he peeled paper from foam.
All right, I've got all the foam core cut, peeled, and textured. Now it's time to solve this mirror problem. Here's the main difficulty with using a mirror. I have to hide each of the edges around the mirror. I can't have those being seen or they'll ruin the illusion. The most difficult seam by far is this seam back here where the mirror meets the foam. To hide it, I want to put a column in front of it, but where this is a mirror, I now have a dual reflection, so there's technically 2 columns in the illusion that we're setting up. So to mimic that, I need to add 2 columns in this opposite corner that's also reflected. This way it appears as if there's 2 columns on both of those corners. Then to hide this seam, I can add another column which will complete this front column pair. I'm not too worried about the top seam because it's going to be covered up by an archway that I'm going to build out on top of the columns. However, this bottom seam is a little bit tricky. So once again, I'm going to steal the ideas that NerdForge came up with when they did something similar on their channel. And I'm going to build out a floor pattern that's going to disguise that mirror. The issue is you're always going to be able to see the seam where the mirror meets the floor. I've created this pattern inside of Photoshop to be able to lay the mirror on this diagonal and hopefully disguise that transition with the lines in this floor pattern. Can you see the mistake I made? I went ahead and eyeballed this, and clearly it's a rectangle instead of a square. Can I live with it?
The dwarves would never approve such poor craftsmanship. It must be redone.
Man, that means I've got to completely tear off the paper again. All right, that was a pain in the butt, but it does look loads better. Now let's finish building out these columns by 3D printing a few more pieces, assembling them all together, cutting out all the archways, and then putting them in place to see how they look.
Well, there's an eye-opener and no mistake.
That's it for the main elements. Now it's on to the electrical. My wiring is going to be pretty simple. I want the back to really glow and draw the eye, so I'm going to be, ringing that whole area with flickering flame LEDs. Once I have those in place, I'll add a tiny little pin light that's going to be Gandalf's staff so that you can see the Fellowship standing right here. And then in Balin's tomb, I also want to draw some attention there, so I'll be including some lights in there, but overall pretty straightforward. All right, I've got Gandalf glowing, the flame lights flickering. It's time for the Balrog. Since the Balrog is the centerpiece to this entire project, it has to breathe its fiery light into this dwarven hall that I'm building out. My first thought to accomplish this was to build a paper shadow box with a flickering LED behind it, but after creating this mock-up, I hated it immediately. The purpose of this project is to showcase a 3D space inside of a 2D picture frame. And using this, kind of flat, two-dimensional paper cutout, well, it ruins the process. Next, I thought about 3D printing a highly detailed lithophane, but everything I saw looked too washed out when it was lit. And then it hit me. I can just create a digital painting and put it on a portable monitor and it'll light up the end of this great hall. I just have to see if it'll fit in the box that I built. At first it didn't quite fit, but then I thought I'll just remove this frame from around the monitor and it fit almost perfectly. It was meant to be. And because this monitor is its own light source, it won't just display the Balrog, but it'll cast that fiery glow along all the columns inside of this great hall. But a monitor is only as good as what's on it, right? So I need to illustrate my version of the Flame of Udun. My first illustration took hours and it turned out okay, but it didn't look enough like a Balrog, and it really didn't project that fiery glow upon all the foam pillars that I built out. So I scrapped it and started again. This time, I started my painting with the flames in mind. When I turn this monitor on, it has to bring this whole thing to life. With the digital centerpiece complete, it's time to move on to the most transformative phase of this entire project, turning this foam mess of wires and OSB into ancient dwarven stone. While I'm in the process of painting out all of this stone, I also need to turn my attention to the small figures that are going to be the entire Fellowship. Obviously, they're huddled in front of this Balrog that's coming out. I need to give them a paint job as well. And once I have the Fellowship painted and ready, I can go in with a few more details, adding some rocks, some dead orcs, things like that throughout this scene that are just going to bring a little bit more life into the diorama. It's not perfect. I am not the greatest artist when it comes to building out these dioramas, but man, this one's my favorite so far. It is looking so good. I've got everything assembled, and I think we're ready for the most daunting task of cutting a hole in the wall and mounting this in the air so we can look at what this is going to look like through the fine viewport of a picture frame. Since I have access to the backside of this wall, I can pull down a sheet of OSB and figure out exactly where I want to mount this box and where that hole needs to be. It's finally time. There's no going back from this. I'm gonna have a permanent hole in the wall of my office. Here we go. There it is. Oh boy. Man, I really hope I don't end up regretting this because we're all in at this point. There is no going back. Here's the hole in the wall. And I'm committed now. I'm just crossing my fingers that all my measurements are right, everything lines up, and this box fits in the hole because, man, what a pain it would be to fix that hole. Oh, don't die, don't die, don't die. Okay. Holy cow. I think it fit. Oh, don't try this at home, kids. Okay, here's the first view of this. Oh my gosh. It actually worked. It fits. It's in place. And oh my gosh. Some rookie forgot to paint that top part, but it is working. Oh my gosh. That is so much better than I thought it would be. I cannot wait to get the lights plugged in on this and to see the final results. Let's take a look. And there it is, the Mines of Moria nestled in the walls of my office. I hope you enjoyed this project. I'll see you in the next one. The dwarves would never approve. Approve? Dang it.